Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So as I've mentioned in my earlier videos, I think it was one of my first videos, I am a licensed clinical therapist and I am currently practicing as a bilingual clinical therapist here in the state of Rhode Island. In today's video, I wanted to dive into the DSM. If you don't know what the DSM, it's this beautiful big book called the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders. As a therapist, I looked through this, I studied this, I had to learn this while in grad school because this is where all the diagnoses for mental health, I shouldn't say all because, they're always evolving, but a lot of the mental health disorders that we're currently using and diagnosing are in this book. So today I wanted to touch on premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. And it's in this book, and a lot of you may not know what PMDD is. I didn't know it until about a year ago when I self-diagnosed myself with it. So, what is PMDD? I wrote down some notes here, so if I'm looking down, I apologize. But PMDD is a severe form of premenstrual syndrome that includes physical and behavioral symptoms that usually resolve once you get your period. What does all that mean? That basically means that you get severe premenstrual symptoms, whether it's physical or mental. They kind of just go away once you get your period, right? It's very difficult to deal with, and it's something that I've had for years, but I wasn't self-aware enough to know that I was dealing with this. And PMDD basically causes extreme mood shifts, and they can even damage relationships. It's that bad, and I'll go into how PMDD has affected me in my life. Some of the symptoms, just to let you know, include extreme sadness, anxiety, hypersomnia, insomnia, anger, irritability, confusion, like your mind feels like you're in a fog at all times, bloating, breast tenderness. Some may experience pain in their body, whether it's in their breasts, in their muscles, in their pelvic region. Mood swings, like I said, so mood is affected, sadness, anger, anxiety, irritability, hopelessness, feeling that you're ugly, which is one of the symptoms I have, like feeling like you're fat, feeling like you're undesirable, all of that. Like I said, it affects your sleep, hypersomnia, insomnia, your behavior. So you can be extremely irritable, on edge, you can always be crying or, very sad. Your appetite can change. You can lose interest in anything that you were previously interested in. You can have food cravings, you can have a crazy appetite increase or a decrease. You can have headaches. You can have fatigue. Difficulty concentrating is a big one for me. You can gain weight during this time. And a lot of people don't know these things because they pass this as, I'm just PMSing, right? Premenstrual syndrome. I'm just going through those. But this is a much more severe case, and it's more chronic. And I wanted to touch on, what would constitute you to be diagnosed with this disorder, as many don't know. I posted it on my Instagram story, and I got so many people asking me to tell them what the criteria for diagnosing is. And I will share that with you guys in this video, but I want to tell you that you have to go to your own therapist, your own psychologist, your own psychiatrist, or your own OBGYN and really tell them about this. And it's not, I felt that way last month. Like, this has to be something consistent, as you guys will see as I break down the DSM for you. What are some things that can treat it? Right off the bat, therapy, self-care, and I'll dive into that. Medication. Some people end up going on SSRIs or benzodiazepines, which are medication. The SSRIs are for depression, and the benzodiazepines are a popular medication that people use for anxiety. Birth control has helped some people. Symptoms that I personally experience. So my PMDD makes me extremely irritable. Everything annoys me. Like someone knocking on my door when I wasn't expecting it will annoy me. It makes me bloated. It makes me believe that I'm ugly. And, not to toot my own horn, but I think I'm pretty most days, but during that week or like 6 days before my period, I think I'm disgusting, like the worst person. Like, it's something that I've been working on for a while now because I've had it for a long time, and I have to constantly challenge my thoughts and remind myself, you know, you're not ugly. This is the PMDD making you think that. And anxiety. Oh my gosh. I get extremely anxious during this time where I can't be in public places, especially now with COVID. I feel like, you know, I'd rather just be home. I'd rather not leave my home because I'm safe here. Food cravings. I cannot stop eating. My stomach is an endless pit. And I always say that if this is what pregnancy is like, Lord help me and the father of my children, because, whoa, I cannot stop eating. 2 a.m., 3 a.m., I'll crave something and I have to, because my stomach will just be like, you need to eat it, you need to eat it, you need to eat it. And sometimes I'll drink water and try to process it that way, but most of the times I just give in to the craving. And that could be very dangerous, right? Like if you're someone who gains weight very quickly. I don't, thankfully. But, you know, you also shouldn't be eating after a certain time. But sometimes I just give in to the craving because it's easier than having that constant nagging. Headaches. I don't think I've experienced a lot of headaches. I've definitely gotten 1 or 2 in the past. Excessive sleeping. I am tired. I'm fatigued. I feel drained a lot of the time, but I don't oversleep because my body automatically wakes me up at like 8 in the morning now. Crying, yes. If I don't cry during this week, and I'm actually dealing with it as I'm recording this, if I don't cry during this week, I become very like angry. So a lot of my built up emotions just come out during this time. Relationships. I've broken up with past boyfriends during this week. And, you know, when I was really young, I wasn't self-aware or able to say, you know, I'm going through this. This is something that's affecting me. I was just like, oh, this is who I am. Like, you know, everybody goes through this, because I never really talked about it with anyone. I feel like I don't want that person near me. I'm disgusted by that person. It's really, really, really bad. And it's something that in my most recent relationship, I was like, you know, I go through this in the week, and he was able to say, oh, it's that week, isn't it? And I'm like, yeah. And when he would say it, we would laugh about it and we would joke about it, but I still didn't want him next to me. Like, we would be on the couch, but he would have to be on the other side, and I'm usually cuddling and all over him. I'm someone who would like not even be remotely attracted to him. Like, men pissed me off during this week, and they still do. What else are my symptoms? Depression. Yes, I get really sad, really down. I think that's it for me. My breasts hurt, and I feel like I have to run constantly, like, or stay busy or occupy my mind, because if not, I'm just gonna get sunk into that feeling, and that's something I don't want to do, right? I've never had suicidal thoughts or anything like that, if I'm being completely honest with you. But I'm sure that there's people that could probably get that into it and have these thoughts of suicidality. And if you're someone who's watching this video, I recommend you talk to a therapist or a psychiatrist, or your PCP, your primary care physician, can lead you in the right direction and say, hey, I learned about PMDD and I want to talk to you about it. Right? So let's get into what everybody wants to know. How do I diagnose, or how do I become diagnosed with PMDD? So I made a bunch of notes, because if you look through the DSM, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 pages, 4.5 pages. And a lot of people look at this and they're like, Sahony, what does this mean? So on my Instagram, I broke it down and I just screenshot it, put it in basic English for the world. In order to be diagnosed with PMDD, which, you know, you don't have to get diagnosed with it, but if you want to, or you want to become more self-aware and you want medication, like an SSRI or an anti-anxiety. An SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which adds serotonin to the brain, which makes you feel better. Serotonin is a feel-good hormone that we have in our body. And some people lack that because of genetics or because of stress, environmental factors, all of that affects your serotonin, stress. So some people lack that and they're just naturally in a depressed state and not aware of that. So serotonin and all these antidepressant medications help bring your mood up. Or for some, they just blunt out your emotions. So if you're dealing with something that's way too traumatic or painful, or depressing, you could take these medications to help you feel better. But before you even think of medication, I would recommend you seeing your own therapist and talking about these things, and talk about your stigmas against medication. Some people think that if they start taking medications, they'll be considered crazy, or if they go to a therapist, they're nutty, But a lot of people don't even realize that they have a serotonin deficiency in their body and that they are in a depressed state until something happens that triggers that, and then they're like, what is going on, right? So I got sidetracked, but there are clusters. So there's a criteria A, a criteria B, a criteria C, D, E, F, and G. And in criteria A, you have to have, majority of the time, you must have 5 of the following the week before your menses, and these symptoms improve right when you get your menses or a few days into your menstrual cycle. Menses meaning period, menstruation. So what are they? You must have an affective lability or mood swings, sudden sadness, tearful, increased sensitivity to rejection, feeling rejected, irritability or anger, or an increased interpersonal conflict, meaning fighting with your partner, your husband, your wife, fighting with people around you, family members, co-workers. A depressed mood, feeling hopeless, and self-deprecating thoughts, feeling like you're ugly, like you're fat, like you're not good enough. Anxiety, tension, and feeling on edge. So that's criteria A, right? You have to have at least 5. C says 1 or more must also be present to reach the total of 5 symptoms. So if you go back to B, which is all the symptoms that I just mentioned, you have to have at least 4, and in C you have to have at least 1 of them. So 1 or more, like I said, must also be present to reach a total of 5 symptoms. Decreased interest in your usual activity. That can be you're outgoing, now you're not really outgoing, you're not really interested in doing the things you love to do. Difficulty concentrating, fatigue, lack of energy, lethargy, change in your appetite, overeating, or cravings, or undereating, insomnia, or oversleeping, hypersomnia. Sense of overwhelm or out of control, not feeling like your life is yours, like you're in control of your life. Physical symptoms, bloating, swelling of breast, weight gain, or joint pain. So I just went over A, B, and C. All symptoms have to be during most of your menses, right? It's not just one and done. You have to prove that you've had it for at least, I believe, 2. Criteria, I call it cluster, but criteria D, symptoms cause significant distress or interfere with your work, school, relationship, daily activities. Like I mentioned, fights with your partner, difficulty dealing at work, confusion, having issues with remembering things. Criteria E is the disturbance is not exasperated by another disorder such as depression, panic disorder, dysthymia, or bipolar disorder. What all that basically means is that you could have already had depression, anxiety, bipolar, dysthymia, and all those other mental health illnesses or conditions, I should say, but it should not be exasperated, meaning it should not be exaggerated because of all of those, right? Although you could have, and I may argue with the DSM, you could have comorbidity, which basically means you could have both, right? But what they're saying here is that all of these symptoms are not caused by your anxiety, they're not caused by your depression, they're not caused by your panic or dysthymia or your bipolar disorder, schizophrenia, or the list goes on and on. This happens aside from all of that, right? And like I said, once you get your period or your menses, most, if not all of these symptoms go away like that. For me, once I get my period, I'm back to normal. I feel like myself again, and I'm like, because for me, the hormones are so intense that it feels like waves of hormones in my body. And criteria F says that criteria A has to be confirmed by ratings in at least 2 symptomatic cycles, meaning you have to prove that this happened to you last month and it's happening to you this month. And then criteria G says symptoms are not caused by effects of substance use, drugs, medication, or other treatment, or medical conditions such as hyperthyroidism. So you have to prove that you don't have hyperthyroidism, or that you're not on drugs or any other medication that could cause you to feel anxious, depressed, or something like that. An example of that would be a lot of people take Accutane for their acne, and that causes some people to have increased anxiety and depression. So you have to prove that you're not experiencing these symptoms, and by prove I mean you have to talk about it with your psychiatrist or your therapist or your nurse prescriber or your OBGYN or your PCP, and say to them, you know, I'm not on any medication that causes me to feel depressed or anxious, because if you stop taking that other medication and all these symptoms go away, then you can't be diagnosed or you don't have premenstrual dysmorphic disorder. So that is what you need to be diagnosed with PMDD. Now, the reason I decided to make a video about this is because when I posted this into my stories, because I was experiencing a lot of the symptoms, I wanted to see how many people were aware of it. And I believe 300 people, I made a poll and said, do you know what PMDD is? And I believe 79% of the people stated that they do not. Both men and women equally. I have more women followers. And so I described it to some people and my DMs blew up. Everybody was saying, oh my God, I think I have this. Oh my God, I've been dealing with this and I feel crazy for so long. I thought I was the only one. I didn't understand why my symptoms were so severe. And so that brings me to my next point, which is what can I do to feel better? So I wrote down a list of things that have helped me throughout my journey. And one of the most eye-opening things was, or the most self-aware thing that I could have done, becoming more self-aware, was putting in my calendar. So I use the Flow app in my phone, and it tells me when I'm about to get my period. So it'll say, period may start today. Period will start in 2 to 3 days. And I'll link the Flow app beneath. So sometimes when I'm feeling hormonal and I forget to put it in my regular calendar, I'll look and say, oh, I'm getting my period in 3 days, which is why I'm feeling all of these side effects. Sometimes, and before I used to put it in my calendar and say, okay, period is going to start in 7 days. It made me realize, okay, what is about to happen is because of this disorder, right? That's what's happening. This is not necessarily my normal baseline. This isn't my normal, right? Become more self-aware, and I've learned that this is a part of who I am. I've been dealing with this for years, whether it was the birth control or whatever genetic. My mom claims to also have it. I've learned that I have to work with it, right? So what have I done? I go to therapy as a therapist. They encourage us to go to therapy from grad school. I'm in therapy. Like I said, I calendar when my period is about to start. So the week before, I'll say, oh, here we go. And some months are easier than others. This month was pretty difficult for me. What else have I done? Meditation. Meditation helps a lot. Working out and changing your diet during this time helps. So eating salads help with, and like eating healthy food help with the insomnia and the hypersomnia and not feeling as bloated. But I still eat whatever I want. Like if I'm craving candy, I'll go get the candy because I don't feel comfortable restricting my body of what it wants, and I'm not concerned about weight gain. So I basically eat what I want. So I also practice self-help. Like I try to do my makeup and dress up and feel pretty and do things that make me feel pretty during this time. Working out helps a lot of people, you know, release that energy and that stress. I warn my family and partners. I'll be like, it's that week. Some of them look at me like I have 17 heads. Like, what do you mean it's that week? I'm like, if I'm a little snappy, I just want you to know that this is what's going on. And I don't get into the details of, oh, it's in the DSM. Well, I just say, you know, I'm about to get my period and this is how I'm dealing with it. But I hope this video was helpful for you. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any more questions, please feel free to comment them down below or to message me on Instagram, and I will try my best to answer them. And I just wanted to build more awareness on some of the other disorders that are in this massive book. and that I could help educate you on. And I will be doing this with other diagnoses as well. So, as always, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye!